Cool. Okay. So we are on episode 2 of our weekly series. Still no name for the weekly series, but we will maybe get that by episode 3. Unsure. If anyone's got any ideas, definitely submit them. Great to be with you again, Han. I think we've got a ton of stuff to talk about. Um, I think things that we were discussing were some interesting stuff that's come out since last time around Google I/O. So we'll definitely talk about that. Lots of announcements around Codex recently, and Claude just launched a new model and like future of work stuff. There's obviously been loads of things that have been happening in the ChatGPT app and Claude connector space, stuff that we're seeing in the ecosystem that I think people will be very interested in. You've had some massive updates. So
Yes,
I'm
cannot
very
wait to
excited about these
share.
updates in particular because it's the generative UI and that topic, which I think a ton of people are interested in, and a super cool build. I'm lucky enough to have had a sneak peek, and it is awesome. So we can definitely chat about that. And then we've also got some big updates. So organic discovery is a huge topic. Everyone is talking about it. The ability to actually get surfaced organically. How do you start to optimize that? And we have some exciting announcements as well. So anything else to chat about? I'm sure
Um,
other stuff will come up.
yes, let's start with what is going on this week. I've seen so many more apps getting approved this week. What does it look like?
Yeah, so let me actually bring up so even since we last caught up actually, I think everyone will know our registry tracker. We hold the biggest registry tracker that we've been tracking for the last 6 months, and so many of you will know it already, but you'll notice that it's had a big update, which has been awesome. So we actually just released this new version of the registry tracker. So in short, what this is doing is we are just tracking the ChatGPT App Store and the Claude Connector Store. So what you can do here is it's the same tracker that you will know, but we've just refreshed it. We've refined the data. You can do everything that you could do there before and more. So you've got category view to see your category, a brand aggregated view, each specific app, tool explorer, and we've actually got like many features that are coming in the pipe as well. I think to get into some stuff that we're seeing recently, so if we even just filter on like the 30-day view, for example, you can see what's interesting, right, is ChatGPT is still really growing and just continuing to release more and more apps. So we've gone from, in the last month, we've gone from 723 to 1,295. So huge growth. And Claude has gone from 342 to, sorry, yeah, 342 to 421. Now, that might seem like less of a jump, but that is at least, an additional kind of third of their app store at the moment. So Claude are still increasing their number of apps, but definitely at a slower rate since ChatGPT. And there is, yeah, a whole range of stuff in terms of ChatGPT apps that have been launched. Honestly, it really is across the board. And there are, all sorts of apps that are now getting accepted. I think a couple of reflections from me and Han, I'm sure you've got like many things that you think in terms of like stuff that you're seeing in the space. I would say ChatGPT, it just feels like because they are the consumer store, they have just had so many different apps and people that have submitted, and obviously they're the main sort of like, they have the highest number of users and stuff like this, so loads of people have been submitting, and I think they're now at the stage where they're just saying like, let's just get everyone in there, it feels like. So they've optimized their submission and approval process, but they're also just at a stage where they're trying to get everyone involved. I think with Claude, I'm actually hearing that, so like ChatGPT, I've heard we're hearing the approval process is getting a lot quicker. It can be up to a week now, sometimes less. Claude is actually, from what we're seeing and hearing from the community and our customers, it's still taking time. So you could still be waiting a long time for Claude. And actually, they're still quite focused on brand or very specific use cases. My guess is that they're going to do what ChatGPT did, right? They obviously just turned on organic discovery, so they're thinking a lot about that. But they are, um, you know, going to be at some point, I think, growing, but they've been definitely more conservative. But yeah, Han, what are
I
you
think
what are
that
you seeing around it?
I think that Cloud probably try to still because they are a little bit later, right? They started the App Store a little bit later.
Hmm.
So I think that they're still trying to figure out which apps that they should allow versus what not, versus ChatGPT right now, they get a couple of months lead time. So I think that they have figured out what kind of app they should approve and what kind of app they should not approve. So I think that not only they're accepting more apps, but I think the momentum of accepting apps is is also higher. I do know that when there are multiple companies that are trying to be the leader in the same space, the winner is us. Like we will see that if
Mm.
one of them do not accept apps very quickly, they can fall a lot behind. So I do see that as conservative as Claude is, I think they are going to be quite aggressive in the future. This is something that I don't know. I wonder if it's like, I wonder how many apps that get submitted because OpenAI announced it, at their, OpenAI Dev Summit last year. So maybe more people knows that ChatGPT apps, I mean, MCP apps is available on ChatGPT more than Claude. So maybe there are even more submission on ChatGPT.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I definitely think that. I think a couple of reasons. One is it's now it's slightly different. Anthropic has really come of its own this year, but I think people are very aware of OpenAI and just think it's the app. They're obviously also much more focused on consumer, and so I think I definitely am seeing until the very recent announcement of the more consumer-led connectors in alignment with them turning on organic. Anthropic is a B2B tool. So all of the companies that, we've been working with, for example, like we have like one customer that I can think of specifically because we had this conversation. It was, they're one of the biggest companies in the restaurant and bar space in the UK. And, they are specifically, making a decision around, okay, well, we'll focus on ChatGPT first. Because we're not going to spend resources where it doesn't make sense. That now changes, right? Because Claude's focusing more on another space. But I definitely think they've had that. And yeah, I think you're right. ChatGPT were a lot more vocal around it. Claude haven't really spoken about their connectors yet. Not in a sort of like really open launch public way like OpenAI did. Back when they were launching it, which is interesting in and of itself. But I think you're
But
right.
so I have been obviously like working in the space, just playing a lot with ChatGPT and Claude. Even though they have less apps, I feel like the tool calling has been like much better, and the way that you can like having all these little knobs that you can change for like each of the connectors. So far, I think Claude has been so much better at implementing technically. And they're also building some of their native app. Like, for example, I think Excalidraw was actually built by Claude
Yeah.
instead of by the Excalidraw team. And that was like such an amazing, I've used it so much in
Yeah,
so
yeah,
many
yeah.
different things.
Incredible. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I know I'm aware of a couple of other companies as well that are thinking about or have Anthropic sort of like building and working on their app. And I definitely agree. Like, frankly, the MCP apps, they work so much better, and tool calling in general in Claude. The experience is so much better. I mean, it's something OpenAI is like definitely going to think about. I think we touched on this last time, but I believe that they are very focused on development and Codex. The growth is insane, and they are integrating into whatever this super app becomes. And I think that is definitely prominent in, you know, their thinking. Like, how much do we invest in apps right now when they're all going to integrate into a super app, for example, and then that experience is going to be there. So, you know, that will also improve tool calling because it's likely Codex is going to be sitting behind it. So there's like various factors that they'll be thinking about. But I do think it's great to see this kind of growth. And God, I think you're going to say something.
I do have to say though, Codex is amazing at tool calling. So I
Yeah,
do
yeah, yeah.
see that ChatGPT, when all of these combine to a super app, that we will see like amazing tool calling
Yeah.
capability from ChatGPT, from OpenAI in general.
100%. I
Um,
think like Codex, and maybe we can talk about it briefly now. Codex is a phenomenal product. And
yes,
I think that
100%.
everyone needs to try. Codex, because it is a glimpse, in my opinion, into the future of work. So like I can share just very briefly, like I've written a post on this because I think it's something that many people just really don't understand fully. Like we're deep in this space, but it's very interesting to sort of think about, based on what we're seeing with these companies that are, releasing these different knowledge work products. What does that mean, and what will the future look like? And then how do you need to think about, getting your product, into these platforms where they're just going to become the core surface? And so I can even just quickly share this. So if you these are some like predictions that I've written out here. I can share this post in the comments. But I think the core thing to kind of like understand is Codex can really do everything. You actually, if you start to really, really get in there, you have very little reason to leave. And actually what that means is that if more knowledge work fits within that, OpenAI's got Codex, Claude is, we spoke about it last time, they've already got Conway on the way, which is an agent platform. They're going to evolve co-work. You're going to have 24/7, always on agents that know your context, memory, and tools. Without going too much into the detail here, these will become, over time, I think, the predominant place where people do all of their work, whether it's coding, whether it's knowledge work, whether it's everything. And basically, like, why over time, if it can do so much, are you going to be switching between these different tools? Like, I do so much of my work in there, and it is a pain to have to open up my browser, open up another app. Like, I just need it to connect into Codex for Codex to complete the work. And even if I'm doing stuff in the browser, I can do it in Codex. Like, I don't need a separate browser some of the time to even do those, more complicated UI pieces. So I think it's interesting in a number of areas. It could honestly be its whole own podcast. But I think it's important for companies to think about, because in this world where these products are so capable, with models that are so capable and harnesses that are so capable, like having a ChatGPT app, having a Claude connector, having an MCP and MCP app, these are just plumbing to make sure that it's your tool and your product that an agent is using when it wants to complete a task. So when to take a very basic example, when I ask Codex, like, can you just review the last meeting that I had, take the call transcript, use it to create a document on this thing, like, you need the MCP and MCP app there so that it is using your product over someone else's. So if you don't have it, it will just, like, I'll just use a tool that has it. You know what I mean? If you're not agent ready, you just will not be available or even visible in this world. And final thing to say, this is not just knowledge work. Like, there will be ChatGPT, particularly in consumer, will evolve ChatGPT into an experience that is similar to this, right? It will be different. You'll need a different experience for consumer, but there will be a more rich interactive UI where tool calling is seamless, and it needs these external capabilities to do useful things for you rather than just like show you a list of hotels, actually like book it for you.
Obviously, I'm like a power Codex user. I have used Codex to like, I'm doing like a home renovation right now. I'm using Codex to like draw my floor plan, like research all the permit history of of my home, So yeah, it's not just like we thinking so much about like coding and like, knowledge work, but now like this is like my personal assistant now. So I do see that. I think that the one thing that is like preventing Codex from being mainstream right now is the fact that, people are still scared of the, CLI, people are still scared of like, oh, you have to create a folder, and that is scary. And, like it's all text. But as soon as, like all these apps are bringing UI onto this experience and it is more consumer friendly, it can do so much. Like, I'm just like every single day I use it, like my mind is blown.
No, completely agree. And I think it's actually funny that you mentioned around doing it for other things. Like, I've had this experience this week. I've been using Codex to help me rebuild my bike. So like, I'm like big into road cycling, and I have a custom bike, and I've like built it over years with like all these like custom components, and I'm like buying a new frame. And Codex is basically like researching all these YouTubers that have like really good videos on custom frames, and it like is telling me which one fits with all my components so that I buy the right frame, and it just like it's just doing it. It's fantastic.
But at the same time, like when I'm using these tools, I'm just like, oh my God, there's no connection for this, there's no connection for that. Um, so I think that the space right now it's like green grass right now. There's just so many opportunity right now. And if you're like a power user of these tools and there's a niche that you do that you're like, oh my God, like we haven't done that. Like for example, me planning my home, I have like ideas for like 10 different ChatGPT app or MCP apps now that I was like, oh my God, like it's still doing it wrong here. And if there's an app that do this, it's gonna get it right.
Yeah.
So I just think that there's just so many different opportunities. Being first, building that is like, I guess, the first step. And being first would give them like crazy advantage. But then, as a competitor is coming in, like getting discovered is another piece. But I do think that, if your app is not there, you're not gonna get discovered. So the first
Exactly.
step has to be like building them
Exactly.
and at least like looking into
Exactly.
them.
100%. And like, you have to be available to these agents in whatever way they want to surface them. They will do that in many ways. One of the core ways they will do that is look in their own registries, decide which app they're going to surface based on tool alignment, based on descriptions, based on ratings, based on usage. And actually over time, I believe, and we believe in our thesis, that these agents will actually just make the decision for you and you won't even be in the loop, and you will trust them to do that. And that's how like you will get so much usage, because Codex and other agents will just autonomously using your connector, and that's only available if you have them. So that is it's an awesome direction, and I'll share some writing that we've done kind of talking a little bit more about that. On that topic, because I think it's a really important one, let's talk about generative UI, because I think it's been a topic for a long time, and it's been a question for a long time. As MCP apps came out, the first envision was, the focus was on getting UI to help the human experience. And I think the vision has always been there to get it to be generative, but it's been a question of, well, what does it look like? How does it evolve? Also, the MCP app standard is already making moves and already does fit in generative UI, but they're expanding that. But I think the question still is, it's still very rigid to implement on almost all of the options that are available. And like, it's been a frustration almost, well, for us and for me. I think it's more just that I think that the whole experience could just be so much better. Like, because of the state, it's all very early for the ecosystem, but because you are getting these rigid experiences and rigid UI frames, you're naturally not serving the intent as well as you could. You only have a certain number of iframes, you have infinite number of intents. It just feels like it could be better. And so I know you've been thinking about this, and would love to hear more about what you've been working on.
Yeah, so we have thought about UI, I guess, like for like a year now, exactly a year now. The I like you can see like how the web evolved, right? Because like the web first started with just text, and human do not like just text. That's why we have the web right now, which is like having all this like JavaScript, images, videos, all the things that allow you to be interactive. So very early on, we realized that chatbot will not be just text. People want to see images. People want to be able to interact with different components. I don't know if you ever like collaborate. Actually, so back to my home planning experience, right? So I asked them to draw a floor plan for me, but then I just wanted to change like just this little bit, right? And to describe it in text is like incredibly difficult. But if I was just to be able to just move it or just point to it, that would have made my life so much easier. So that's pretty much the main reason why I believe that old chatbot is gonna move into more rich components, interactive components. It's hard because LLM is a language model, and language is text. So I know that it will take time for the model to go from text-based to be interactive. But the models are super capable right now with coding. So we see like the improvement. So the reason why our company name is Fractal is because we believe that how you create this UI is that you have like all these little components and then you kind of combine them together, and that's the name Fractal.
Yeah.
But a year ago when we were building it, the model was not capable enough. We just tried it last week and oh my God, like it's working now. So I would love to just share what we have been building.
Yeah.
Let me share screen and I want to show you what is. So this is my ChatGPT, and I'm planning my travel. So when I say something like, oh, find me a flight from SF to London, and I get the little widget, it's like already so much better than I could ever get. But then, as I get to something a little bit more complicated, for example, like, oh, plan my travel for me. You can see like it's getting like very text heavy. And the reason is because right now, like every single time you ask something, Expedia has a tool for finding flight. Expedia have a tool for finding like hotel. If you ask it exactly, oh, find me a flight, it give you the flight. If you ask exactly, find me a hotel, it help you find your hotel. But when you're like, oh, like find me flight and hotel, plan my trips, and I'm doing this, just so many different ways that people can ask. How is AI going to answer that? And I think that this is like one of the things that prevented the adoption of MCP app is that it's too rigid. If the person asks like that exact questions, then it show a beautiful UI. But the moment that they ask something that is just, like just slightly different, for example, plan my travel, then it become like text heavy again because it doesn't know how to display the UI. So we come up with a way to build these. It's like, how can we make beautiful UI that still retain the company's branding? Because right now, like AI can code too. So like you can have like AI creating this widget for Expedia, but I don't think Expedia wanted ChatGPT to create a UI because this little widget that they created, they probably do so much research on like where the price should go so that it's most appealing to the customer. They do not want AI to create that. They want to have full control of how this card is used. But the flexibility of like if the user asks a slightly different questions, that instead of like completely choke, it was able to build something for the customer. So now I'm going to show you like how I would implement it. So finding me flight from SF to London, it will give you like pretty much the same UI. You just have one widget of the flights. But then if I go to something more complicated, then create travel plan from SF to London for me, including flight, hotel, and what to do, you can see that it would have, like this travel plan that over here, all text is branded and is branded to my brand. So it does feel like my app is building all of these out for my user. And then each of these components, like the flight, the hotel, the tour, these are all the components that I have meticulously created to make sure that it retains my branding and is most optimized. So you see that it's mixing generative UI with almost like pre-made components. I think that this is like a great way to marry between generative AI and like stuff that you don't want to change. Like for example, as a brand, like you don't want to change your branding. You don't want like, these to be a different color every time. You don't want the pricing to be shown in a way that is not optimized for you. So these are the stuff that you don't want to change. But then, if you only have it to show the stuff that you don't want to change, it becomes too rigid. And I think this is the problem with a lot of the MCP apps right now, is that it's too rigid. And by combining between generative UI with like existing components, we call them composable UI. You get the best of both. You get like the generative UI aspect, and you get all these components that is branded and is optimized and is like full control of how you want it to show.
100%. No, it's super impressive, and it's so cool because I think we've all been talking about this for such a long time, and I think it's this framework that enables the vision that I think we all have, which is UI can now be generated on the fly, but people and humans need a element of consistency. And not only that, I think always the best user experience will win, right? But it's on top of that, it's very useful for a brand. You can actually have a UI component that fits in and that has a level of consistency. I don't believe in like fully generative UI in the sense that there is, no consistency and no way for a human to be able to have some sort of persistent state that they recognize, right? So, and this solves that problem. It is a way for you to be able to, as a brand, have components that matter, but then for those to be composed in a branded way to actually then serve the intent. And I think the example was so spot on because it's, you could just compare it to the other view and it's obvious, right? Like, that, for example, something super simple like an itinerary, it can just with that basic UI component, it's very easy to make as well. That's the thing. It's
100%.
easy to make. And it just is such a better experience, and then the components fit in there. So, yeah, it's a great build, and I think super exciting, and will be also just interesting to see how people try it. Like, I think I've got a lot of things that we'll be thinking about to use it as well. So, I think it's awesome.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you're spot on. I think that for human, you want something personalized, but also familiar. You don't want you don't want like completely generative UI, but you also want something personalized. So that is what we aim to accomplish.
Yeah, very cool. And I think like it also kind of points to this vision, right? Like, it's clear that these companies and these LLM providers, they know that they need these external capabilities, and they need to be able to have some sort of UI component to make it an interesting interaction for a user. And a chatbot is not the end goal. And I think that's what all of these labs are very, very aware of that. And so it's becoming, okay, how can we evolve this kind of initial experience of MCP apps into something much more sophisticated and actually generate these rich interactive UI experiences? And I think this is like a stepping stone into that. And then I think maybe next thing we could talk about, actually, because it kind of feeds into this, is everything that's happening with Google. And then I think we can then talk a little bit about, how people can kind of think about some discovery updates as well. So Google I/O, huge.
Yes.
I think super exciting around some of the launches and stuff that they have had come out. I think we can definitely talk about Gemini Spark and MCP app connections. So we can talk about that. They've had, I think we could honestly spend a whole hour on this topic. So I think maybe if there's anything else, we can just pick it out. But there's like Chrome Web MCP. There's huge updates to search, and that actually moving to be predominantly AI search. Updates around Universal Car, UCP, AP2, all of the agent protocols and commerce experiences. So ton of interesting things. Was there anything else you wanted to cover specifically? I think we can get into Gemini Spark because that's cool as well.
I think that the one thing that I want to touch on is definitely the AI search, because so many people has been relying on SEO for so long, and now you may not even you may not people use SEO for lead gen, and now you may not even get the traffic that you want because AI just summarize what you wrote and give the person an answer without them ever using your website. So if you have been relying on like SEO, like the way that you have to look at these has to be completely different now.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And maybe we can even just like touch on this bit now. So I'll share my screen quickly. So just to finish up, just to follow on that trend. So first of all, like an AI search update that's happened is effectively they have now made the AI answer be the predominant thing that is appearing within search. And there's loads of updates in here. Like I would really encourage people to deeply understand the updates that have happened here because it is a huge deal. But that switch has finally happened. And I think it's interesting because of exactly like you said, Han, it changes what search means. Now, we're super deep in this space. And so like can share a lot more about our writing and thinking on this. But, you know, SEO plays a core foundational role in AEO. And so, you know, those that have that traffic, it does translate to in some ways, but not completely. And then there is less direct traffic, right? And actually it changes almost the entire business model that surrounds the web, because a lot of the web, you're incentivized to create content because of the fact that you get direct traffic, and that doesn't necessarily happen anymore because you will not have a user that actually necessarily goes to your link and actually goes to your web page because it just gets aggregated into a search engine. So, you know, sure, the people that benefit from this might be you have a blog, it then presents your product, and then it's then it's then a recommendation. So they then go to your product manually, for example. You know, the people that lose are all the people that create content that then get paid through ads or other methods by actually going to the link. So there are definitely some big like winners and losers from this. But it is an interesting direction, I think, just for the end user, for the world, right? I think we have seen how prolific and useful it is to actually get more sophisticated answers, and so it doesn't surprise me that they've got to this. I would just encourage people to look at and think about the foundations for what this means for discovery and how to get discovered by agents. You know, SEO and AEO do play a role in agent discovery, and actually you getting cited is important, but that is only one component. You know, being cited in an agent world is one part of the puzzle. You know, you need to be used and actually have an agent not just find you, but then actually use your product agentically. And so that's a whole different kind of discovery mechanism and mechanic. And that's actually where, you know, MCP and MCP apps come in and optimizing for discovery there. But very cool release by Google. Another thing that came out, and I will share these links in the chat or in the comments, is Gemini Spark. So Gemini Spark is, am I sharing what's useful? Yeah, down here. So let's have a look. Are we on there now? What can you see? Yeah, great.
I can see, yeah.
Although this is a different tab. Yeah. So the release from Google more broadly is that the Gemini app is becoming agentic, delivering proactive 24/7 help. So there's many updates that are packed into this, but it's the same direction that we are seeing from all of the labs, which is, OpenClaw was interesting. Having a 24/7 always on agent that can do things for you in the background without a computer being on is useful. And actually just being a chatbot, you can only do so many things. So there's many updates that are packed into this, but what's great is that Google is taking a very firm step forward in that direction, and Gemini Spark is their play in that. Now, what's interesting is that for this conversation is that it's exactly actually just like I've sort of said it. It's moving from just information to action. And I swear I didn't read that before. So we've got a good alignment of narratives going on here. But I think it's true, right? You now, for you to have a 24/7 always on agent, you don't just want it to give you information, you want it to actually do stuff for you. And that's why Google is so well positioned here, because they just have such an amazing suite of products that people already use and can so natively integrate. But what it means is, the question then became, and everyone has been thinking about it, how will Google choose to integrate other products into their products, right? And what's great is that they have chosen MCP. So what was announced is that they are using, they're calling them MCP connectors, and we need to be very careful with the wording here. They're calling them connected apps, and they're calling their MCP connections that allow you to, just like MCP and MCP apps do and other, platforms, bring in, these products and use them within Gemini. So first of all, awesome that is happening and that they are using MCP as a common standard. So it's very good for MCP overall. Now, the UI, so you can see here they are launching UI, right? This is Instacart. It looks similar in that way, right? We don't know, or at least it's not been publicly announced, whether they're using MCP apps or their own standard. I think generally it's understood that Google is a company that's always wanted to use their own technology. So they will sort of, I think, generally fight to make sure that is the case. But it'll be interesting to see, which standard do they choose, and will they force everyone to use a different standard? But nonetheless, they've got many launch partners, as you can imagine, that are already kind of primed, already do have their apps. And only other thing to mention is this is not live exactly yet. I don't think you can go today and use it. We have tried, but it is going to be rolled out over the coming months, so that you can actually go to Gemini and attach these connected apps, or at least the ones you're seeing here. So that'll be rolling out shortly.
I'm not surprised that they wanted to go with their own, connections or like their own standard, because, people wanted to have a moat. But I think the thing with AI right now is that there's no moat, like it's so easy. Like I can have like Codex to like rewrite me into like Gemini standard in like, a few minutes. So I don't think that there is a moat now. So my guess is that they probably would go with the MCP app standard because they're already later to the game, and the fact that even if they have their own standard, they're not gonna be able to have like a strong moat anyway, unless there's something about the current standard that they do not like. I would expect them to use the MCP app standard. But regardless, if you're like a builder, I think that the first thing that everyone needs is that they need an API. I know like, some of our friends have been saying over and over API. I think API is probably like the key for everything. If you want to use CLI, you want to use MCP. If you're building, you need an API. And then, depend on your use cases. If you want to build like more locally, or like you don't need like a way to audit and run it in your organizations, probably CLI. If you need a registry or gateway, then you want MCP. If you want to display the UI inside, then you want MCP apps. But all of them, you do need an API. So if a company was like, oh, there's just so many different things, I don't know which direction they're going to go, I think that if you start with API, you're safe, because all of them would need an API.
Yeah, spot on. I think great advice, right? For anyone thinking about that, and it's true. And I think generally, like, I'm very hopeful that as well that it will be MCP apps. It would be amazing if it is. I think everyone in the industry sort of like rooting for it to be. It would just make everyone's life easier, right? Rather than having to rebuild something else completely for Google. I could see them doing it, but let's hope not. But I think takeaway here, I think for me at least, has been it is awesome that they have this and they have made that announcement, and we're going to have MCP connectors inside Gemini. That's a big deal. It's another surface, a huge ecosystem, and they're building 24/7 always on agents that can just run your connectors at any point. You can set up a reminder, check this, do this, etc. And obviously Gemini has a huge consumer base as well. So very cool.
Yeah, one small thing I want to call out in the
Yeah.
announcement as well is that I saw that Spark is powered by anti-gravity.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, anti-gravity was windsurf, which is like a coding harness. So you will see that how Spark runs will be very similar to Codex, to cloud code or cloud codework, because this harness is the type of harness that they're running. So you expect, like, for example, like for all these MCP, you will expect to have like tool chaining, support for MCP, support for maybe CLI. For consumer, maybe they don't allow CLI, but I don't know what their decision is. But these harness are completely capable of these.
Yeah, I think it's spot on, and like I think the takeaway also is just like hopefully this means it's just a far better experience, particularly better than ChatGPT is right now.
Oh,
Which I think one
100%,
of those
yeah.
like is really the underperformer here. So yeah, great call out, and I think yeah, hopefully it means that it is working well. Final thing I think I had for the agenda today, I think is to talk a little bit more about discovery and everything that's happened. So last time we spoke about Claude connectors now have organic discovery. It is the first time ever that you can start to optimize for this new discovery surface, right? This is a new SEO. This is not AEO. It is a completely different optimization surface. And like I already showed, we have the community tracker. So all of the data inside of the Registry Tracker is completely for free. It is a community-led tool. It is completely available. And actually, the registry is an important sort of component to think about when you think about discovery, because it is, you have to be in the registry to be discovered. But if you actually want to start to understand, okay, am I appearing, before you think about how to optimize for this new surface, you need to think about, how am I actually appearing in the first place? Am I appearing for any prompts? Am I appearing for the prompts that I want? Where am I ranking? All of these different components. And so we built a platform that basically just allows you to get access to that data. So here is a view of the hotel search and booking category. And for anyone that isn't familiar, basically what's happening is that if I can just quickly open up one of these prompts and show everyone. So if you kind of go down into the run history here, you can see that this is like a view of what's happening within Claude. So you could ask a prompt. It can be a discovery prompt where it says connector. It can be an action prompt. It will then highlight all of the different connectors that you could use. And so this is Claude making the decision to go to its registry, to look at a number of factors and then decide which to showcase. And so it is a new discovery surface that you can optimize for. And obviously the goal here is you can then suddenly be involved in much more traffic. And this will grow. We will move to the point where this will be agents making decisions around which connectors to appear, and you need to optimize for that. This optimization surface will grow. But I think the first and most important thing is you need to understand how you appear so you can then optimize for it. And so what this does is we've got two components to it. Part of it is categories. So this is just a useful place for any company that has a Claude connector or anyone that is looking at their niche within Claude connectors to just understand who is ranking across different categories. So we have a number of categories here. We have many more that we're adding. We have in our data every Claude connector tracked, and so you can go into any of these and then just start to see who is appearing and who is ranking. You have things like share of voice, you have things like average rank. And what you can then do is you can look at the different prompts that are running. So here are like different discovery prompts where, you mentioned connector. There are different action prompts, where it's more like you are just expressing an intent. And then for each of these, you can see who's winning the rank. You can see who is then, appearing elsewhere in the rank, desktop, location, etc. You can click into each of these. And then actually you can then go and see more data. And then you can actually see all the data that exists on them. So this one's been tracked for the last, if I go week, you can see actually very, very sort of static rank here. And then you can actually go down and see every single run. So you can then go in and look, okay, for this run, you can kind of see the run capture and then the actual, visual there. And I think what we then have is and all of our customers that are on board onto the platform, they can actually run their own prompts. So in that view, what it means is that you can actually, the category view is interesting, right? It gives you this overall view. But now what you can do is you can add your own prompts, and you can then, for the prompts that you really care about, how are you appearing? And then you can start to build up a category view there and then capture that data. And it's obviously very early. So, when you then think about how to optimize for this, the best thing that you can do is have the best understanding in the space of what, they're likely measuring. And to get that, you have to have the data. So That's why we've been collecting such a strong view of, okay, how is this likely working? And then basically, we can, use that to also just help companies to think about how to begin to optimize for this space. But you do need to be thinking, I think it's just worth mentioning so everyone is aware, there's many factors to this. So discovery is a complex topic. Each of these different clients, and right now it's Claude, it'll be OpenAI, it'll be Gemini, and they'll all be different. They will all have their own black box and system that they use, like Google, that you have to backwards engineer and figure out how it works. And they'll all be different, and they will all involve many factors, which don't just include, your ranking and your elements of the directory with the description, but more importantly, your MCP server and the tools exposed and the description of those tools and how well they fit the intent, but also just your performance, the speed, how many people use your app, how many people return, what's the ranking, what's the rating. There's many factors that you have to optimize for here, but I think great that this is now just available to the ecosystem, so everyone can kind of get that data and start to see it, and begin the optimizing experience, figuring out what you can tweak, which stuff to focus on, and start to climb the ranks as more people start to organically find connectors within Claude.
I think this is so telling because as we see with Google I/O, like if you're relying on Google search for people to use your service, first, people may not even be searching. Like the first thing I thought when I saw your dashboard, I was like, oh, do you have MCP or CLI? So you can have Codex to go and do it for me, So people may not be even the people that search, but even when people are searching, they're not like they don't even go to your website, just read the AI summary. So figuring out a way so that AI agents can use your product directly is probably give you way, like this is something, I would not even say that, oh, this is not necessary. This is like unavoidable right now at this point that you have to be prepared for it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, totally would welcome the community reaching out with like loads of people are we've had a great response, to be honest, so far, and loads of people loving the data, tracking the data. And so would definitely just encourage people to kind of, reach out, get involved. And I think, like you said, we're really at the beginning of this, loads of exciting stuff on the roadmap, making it available, also our own platform to agents, of course, and people being able to use kind of data in whatever client that they use and things like this. But yeah, exciting times ahead, I think, over the place. We are also, I think, all waiting for OpenAI to, make a similar play. We don't know when that is. I suspect, this is just a guess.
Not until the super apps now.
Yeah, if you want to hear my bet, super app is coming. They need time to figure that out. It makes no sense to be thinking about, organic discovery as you're about to switch over a major client. They're also thinking about ads generating revenue. They are very up to the wall with figuring out, okay, how are we going to get our revenue up? So that's kind of a predominant focus, but it is coming. And I think it's a matter of time. And I think particularly as Claude connectors start to do better and better, everyone that I speak to has a Claude connector is doing really well. And that's very positive for the industry. And so I think OpenAI will catch up eventually.
Well, it just means that, when OpenAI announced it, it's going to be so much bigger because I've heard like the entire user base of Claude is like ChatGPT's like user in Texas,
Yeah. 100%.
So you can see like the
It's actually like
scale once ChatGPT, it's going to be a lot more.
100%. Very exciting. Cool. I think that's everything. Anything else you wanted to mention this week?
I think that's all for me. I cannot wait to see what's new that we're going to have next week.
I know. There's always lots to cover. Great episode. We will, of course, get this shared on YouTube in the coming days. And yeah, join the various communities. Discords will share all the kind of community links in there, and any resources that we spoke about. Definitely encourage trying out Fractal and the Generative UI side. Get in touch if you want to track the organic discovery data, or get in touch with the registry. You can actually just access it directly at agentdiscoverability.com/track. And yeah, we will chat to you all next week.
Amazing. And the generative UI that I showed earlier today, I think we're gonna open source it. So if we open source this before this video come out, we add that into the link as well.
Yes, 100%. Let's do it. Ideal. All right.
Okay.
Catch
Bye,
you next week.
guys.
Bye bye bye.